Today I want to talk about lenses and, in my experience, what I've found to be the best lenses for video work. I want to talk through some of the lenses that I've found that I've purchased in the past and then gone on to sell, just so it might help you make the decision for yourself and what not to buy or what to buy and try out. You might buy a lens, try it out on a project, and then find when you're editing that it's not the right fit for you, so then go on and sell it. It's not a completely negative situation if you are at a loss when you sell your lens. You're buying an experience with that lens, and I feel like this experience has helped me shape what my style is, what I like to film with, and what my pack looks like. Whether or not you're shooting on an APS-C or full frame camera, my advice would be to buy full frame lenses. If you're going to spend the money anyway on those lenses, I think buying full frame lenses future-proofs you for whether or not you do want to upgrade your camera body. On the other hand, you might want to stick with APS-C. That might work for you. So if that's the case, then I would encourage you to buy APS-C lenses. But for me, I always knew that I was going to go full frame. I'm going to show you a couple of samples of each lens that I used and how I made that decision whether or not to keep it or sell it. Starting off with the Sony 50mm 1.8. This was a great lens. I paired this with a Sony a6000. I used this with the Sony a6500. Yes, it was an 85mm, but for its price range, this lens was absolutely amazing. Really clear, really sharp, a really bang for buck lens. The reason why I sold that lens was I actually got the opportunity to try the Zeiss 55mm 1.8, and I just noticed a bit of a difference in the sharpness and how the camera operated overall. The look of the Zeiss 55mm 1.8 was exactly what I was after, and this is still in my kit today. I then went and purchased the Sony 35mm 1.8. This lens I was happy with, but I didn't love it. I won't say it wasn't crisp, but there was something about it that just didn't quite meet what I wanted. I can't even put my finger on it. So what I did was I sold that lens and I purchased the new version of the Sony 35mm 1.8. This lens was absolutely amazing. I shot quite a few brand shoots with this and I filmed weddings and events. It's sharp, it's clear, it works really well. Everything's just perfect. I've kept this lens in my kit. So when I bought my first Sony a6000, it came with the kit lens, the 16 to 50mm. Look, this lens isn't great. I don't think it's an amazing lens. It's not the greatest low light lens. It is quite wide. I found that it wasn't the sharpest. I think you could use it for B-roll in getting those like wider shots throughout your video. I found that I got rid of it because it just wasn't used very often. When it comes to zoom lenses, I have tried so many zoom lenses. I've tried to make them fit for my look and feel, but they just don't work for me. I started off buying the 55 to 210 Sony lens. This lens just didn't quite meet my creative style. It wasn't the look that I was after. I don't think it's a bad lens if that's the kind of feel that you want. I went on to buy the 18 to 105 f4 with OSS inside. This lens was really handy when I used it on the gimbal because it didn't extend in and out when you were zooming, but the quality of this lens just wasn't there. The sharpness was always out a little bit, and I went on to sell that lens. From here, I purchased the 24 to 105 G lens. This lens was quite good. I used it for quite a few weddings when it came to ceremonies and really bright days where you didn't really need that 1.8 aperture. So the F4 worked really well. Everything was really sharp, but there was just something about this lens where I got to the point where I stopped pulling it out of my kit and stopped using it. So I'm one of those people where if I don't use it, just get rid of it. I want my kit to be really minimal, really compact, and just keep the lenses that you find that you're using the most. Looking at the Sigma 18 to 35 1.8 lens. So I traveled with this lens over to America and filmed the entire trip with this lens. Luckily, I didn't use the natural audio coming out of the camera for this lens because the grinding noise when that lens autofocused was absolutely horrendous. The look and feel of that lens is beautiful. I cannot fault the look or creative style of that lens, But if you are wanting to use your natural audio from your camera, you will get that grinding noise, and it was just completely unusable. I found then, okay, I can't use that lens for any weddings, I can't use it for any events, or where I actually need to use the audio. I just couldn't justify keeping that lens in my pack when it came to the grinding noise, so had to get rid of it. From here, I bought my last zoom lens, the Sony G Master 24-70 2.8. This lens was pretty incredible. I did try this lens and filmed quite a few weddings with it and brand shoots. I think that lens is a really good investment if you want that. Pick up a lens, put it on, whole day you can shoot with it, and that's the kind of look and style that you're after. The other thing I found was whenever I was traveling, I wouldn't pack that lens. It is big, it is heavy, and it's just not that nice to carry around. So I finally landed, after 8 years of video work, on 2 lenses that sit in my pack. That is the Zeiss 55mm 1.8 and the Sony 35mm 1.8. These 2 lenses on the Sony A7C Mark II give me a pretty good range. You also have the opportunity to use crop mode on the Sony A7C Mark II. So this changes that 35mm to about a 50, which is epic, because then if I put on my 50mm, I then have that 55 range, and then I can bounce into about that 80-85 range. I find anything under 35 is a little bit too wide for the look and feel that I'm going for. So keeping it in that 35 to 85 range is exactly where I want to be. I also use my camera on the Zhiyun Crane gimbal, and I find that these lenses are very similar in size and weight. So when you put them on the gimbal, you don't have to change any of the settings. You don't have to adjust the camera because the weight's different of those lenses. So it works really, really well. But I do encourage you to buy any lens that you might have your eye on. Buy it, try it out, use it for a project, do some editing, then kind of figure out, is that the lens for you? Because it might be, it might not. But like I said before, don't look at it like a completely negative situation in that you're losing money for what you paid for that lens. You're buying the experience with the lens. So that's a really valuable lesson. So I hope my experience over the last 8 years buying lenses and trying them out and then reselling them helps make your decision on what lens to buy.